Hey guys, right, okay, week 2, Road America, one of my more favoured circuits. Didn't like it because I could never get the braking down the hill into turn 5, I think it is, or 4, the one that takes you underneath the ridge, but been getting better through the years, but yeah, good circuit. This is late afternoon, so we are going to be into low downforce territory here. Um, what I've done is a little bit of warm up work with time and top speed of the medium downforce in iRacing medium default with the fuel adjusted from 60 down to 45 kilograms as we run around here. So let's just double check and make sure that we are still an hour. I don't believe it'll have changed, but in the past I've done, yeah, 60 minutes. In the past I've done an hour and 15 around here. Just looking through the rest of the season, everything is 60 minutes. So yeah, let's just zoom that back out. Yeah, 60 minutes. So we don't seem to have any races that go beyond. So that's fine. So 45 kilograms as ever. We come in, got to test, make sure they've got on the HPD, Road America, full course, late afternoon. We hit adjust track state. We're running with 20%. Go back into adjust weather. We want to tap on use our racing defaults, and we hit go. So we'll let that load up. I've done, you've probably seen the top left, I've done some timings there, so might be able to just wait till that disappears because it's obscuring the text at the moment. I am going to sort out some better graphics. I think I've got some time off this week. So I'll be able to hopefully integrate JLT or something like that a little bit better, as well as the pre-work stuff. So some better graphics. So we can see I've got some green text in the top left. So let me just, before we have a look at that information, let me just start this afresh. So we're going to iRacing Setup, so I'm not going to save that. iRacing Setup, medium downforce, sorry, what am I doing? iRacing, low downforce. As ever, what we want to do is get a benchmark as to the kind of times that we're going to hit. So what we want to do is load the default, take it down to 45, and we just need to just reduce the ride heights one click all the way around. So we're going to do this each week, and then there's a couple of ways that we can do this afterwards. What I've found with this particular setup, the low downforce for around here, is that it works quite well. In fact, myself and fellow HPD driver, you'll have seen him around, Neil Andrews, 6000 iRater these days. We were both in test environments doing exactly the same, default weather, late afternoon, jumps into low downforce. All we do is adjust the fuel level, and we go out and we drive. We get a benchmark, then we take the tyres down and then get a benchmark. We found that we gained half a second by doing that. And that gave us quite a margin over the medium. So what we'll do, just tap on done there. Let me just get in the car so it clears up the writing at the top of your screen there. So medium downforce round here. I managed to, not to say that anybody couldn't go faster, of course somebody could go faster, a 123.747, and the maximum speed was a 274.3. Now the reason why I put speed on there this week is because that's going to be an important factor, because we've got two very long straights, and in fact we've got three, but two of them are, you do get up to the top end. The middle one, which we'll see after the double right, I don't think you quite get to the top speed, but it's mainly towards the back where we're approaching Canada Corner, and I'll point that out when we get round there. So what we're going to do, we'll go out, we'll set a benchmark. By all means, if you're watching the video after the fact, then just skip forward to when we start playing on the... Let me just move that out of the way just so I can see chat if anybody jumps into the live stream. So, so yeah, we'll go out and do some laps. I know where the time should be, because I've just done a warm-up session just to see where I am. So I just want to make sure we can get there. So we don't top out, so with the iRacing default, we're not topping out for gears anywhere when we run by ourselves. And there's only a couple of things in the gearing that I'd like to change. So this is the problem turn that I think most people, when they're new to iRacing or they get a new set of pedals, have the most trouble with. I suppose the one after that would be Canada Corner, because you're coming from the highest speeds down to a moderately low speed right-hander. So right, so differences realistically between a medium downforce and a low downforce set, I would say, is clearly you're not going to have the grip, and brake points you're going to have to bring them back up again unless you're particularly talented on braking. But ultimately you've got to realise that you don't have the downforce that you would have if you was flying around in medium. Now, if this was a different time of day, I think the difference between medium and low would probably be closer. Let's go around here. Would be closer, and then I think the discussion would be a little bit different, because ultimately you'd have tyre wear in the second half of the race, which could play into a factor. But what we're going to do here is that we're going to see what our top speed is. That's the reason why I would want JLT to be visual for you on screen, but I ran out of time to get that sorted this week, so hopefully I can bring that in so you can hear the brakes just locking up a little bit there. That's just me not being smooth enough applying them through. So that's the one thing that you need to be with the brakes, is you need to get a technique, and it's just about backing up your braking markers and then feeding them in. It's really tricky going to this one. Yeah, it's the second gear in this set that for me is the issue. So we're not going to change anything because we're running defaults. So I like to hold a higher gear often here, and then just raise the revs back up again once you know that you can turn it. So this is the kink, and at the end here, at the end when we brake turn right, that is Canada Corner. Ooh, that's a big stutter. Feed, and then on the gas. If you get a bit too aggressive back there, especially on the exit, you can basically lose the back of the car and it'll come around on you straight into the inside wall. So you just need to try and progress on the throttle coming out of there. It's easy to stamp on it, I often do it, but it depends how lucky you are getting away with the incident. Right, so we're down to 52 flat, so I know we've got a bit more to come out of that. Yep, so this may be worthwhile. I don't know if you guys have done this from the video from last week. I need to apologise for the microphone audio. It's it was getting cut a little bit by an over-aggressive plugin that just tries to get rid of the background noise. So hopefully should fix that this week. So yeah. So this would be worthwhile doing for your own peace of mind, just to see where you are in what you can gain for yourself. In fact, even if you gain anything. So sometimes setup isn't about ultimate speed; it's about the average performance. Trying to keep your averages up is the name of the game, because you don't want to be the fastest guy for 3 laps and then find out you're the slowest guy for the rest of them. So you want to make sure that you've got a good car for the race. And that's really what the setup's about. Obviously you want to gain performance, but we're looking to make sure... Looking at my 4th monitor there. You want to make sure that you're getting some speed out of it as well, would be nice. So if you remember from last week, what we did, we got a benchmark, and then we took the tyres as low as they go. But we can see that the tyre pressures are building up for us now, so we get an understanding. So we get an understanding of how the tyres are warming up and what we need to do with them going through the setup. So that's why I mentioned last week, is that when you make changes, ideally if you've got the time, you want to try and do a good 10 laps, 8 to 10 laps, get the tyres up to pressure. There we go. Nice time gain. Be as gentle through there as you can. You want to not disrupt the car too much. You just don't have the downforce to be over aggressive with it. We go flat through there, flat's flat. Okay, so we're into the 51s after this one. I know there's still more out of that, so we'll just go maybe another couple of laps, so we'll see if we can get down to a time I had before. Oop. Not going to do it doing that. So yes, we don't quite get up to the highest speeds along this part, but pretty close. So you got different approaches to this turn. As you saw there, I took it more casual. You probably find through the race that probably pay off purely because if you just leave the braking too late and too hard, you'll end up locking the brakes and then just wearing out your tyres. So. And in iRacing you don't really want to overheat them, so yeah, you just gotta be careful. So that's the thing with low, is that you just don't have the downforce to plant the tyre into the tarmac. So so the other thing I don't quite like, and I think it gets better as the weight comes off when we burn the fuel, is the 4th to the 5th sounds a bit boggy. So it's not really carrying on, it's not taking us through. So yeah, so we'll see. But I think that gets better as we, like I said, as the car gets lighter. So just let you know what the time that we're hitting. So just before we started the stream and started the recording, got down to a 51.5, so you can see we're on a 51.8 at the moment. I don't think... oh, that's the wrong gear for a start. I don't think driving and talking is necessarily my forte to get the best speed. Getting nice and early on that corner there. If you get the speed right, then it really helps getting the grip going on the way out. What I've found with low downforce on the kink is that you know how you know what the minimum is on the turn on the wheel is to get it through, and you don't want any more than that. You hear about drivers wanting to apply the least amount of steering lock to open up the circuit. That's sort of the kind of things that they're talking about. They want to scrub the least amount of speed out of the car. Right, one more lap. Yeah, second and third are too close together. I think second's too tall as well. Quite get that right, so it wasn't quite fluid enough on that. So yeah, so you just on that last turn you just want to try and get the nose in as early as you can, but obviously without causing too much trouble on the stability of the car. So yeah, so we only managed to get down to 51.8 on that one, but I know, and I'm going to put it in the green writing at the top, of 51.5, and I think it was an 8.2 or something like that. Now what I'm not going to be able to show you on screen is the top speed. I've got it in JRT, so let me just bring that up on my side. So that was 288.1. So let's just update that on screen. I'm going to stay in the car just for a moment because I want to just explain something that I think may have changed. So let's put a time in here. So 151.582. I think it was 582, but I know that the speed was the same. 288.1. Yesterday I managed to get 0.3 or 0.4. So it's funny how the differences can come through. So we just say OK to that. So we can see low downforce. Has that changed on screen? Yeah, it's already applied. So before we talk about that a little bit more, when I was watching the video back during the week, I mentioned in the last week's stream that the hot pressures that I was talking about in the middle versus the tyre temperature I've got a funny feeling I may have to revisit this because when we tried this a while ago, the tyre temperatures just didn't correlate to the pressures. Now, I've got a funny feeling that maybe a build or two ago that they've maybe corrected that. So I think it might have been around the time that the first GT car came out. I think there's a new tyre. I think there's new tyres that came with that car. So I'm going to pay when I get a chance. I'm going to pay some more time as to whether to focus on tyre temperatures as we do in real life, not me as in the royal we, but race teams, versus what we've often done in our racing, which is working on the tyre pressures, hot pressures. Now let's go back in the car, but you can see here we're on a 51.539 as an optimal, and we're only 3/10 away as the speed there. But there's definitely more speed, and that probably helps if I don't speak as often. But that's part and parcel of doing these kind of videos. Right. Okay. So as we did last week, we're now going to find out what happens when you take the tires down. So let's have a look. So we can see here that we've got a higher on the left. We're one click away, so we need to raise on the right hand side of the car. So that's all that we're going to do. Let's have a quick look. It's not really offset anything there. I'm not going to change anything. Just bring this back down to 0 again. There we go. I'm not going to change anything on the car. But we can see here we've got medium brake pressure this time. Last week it was high on the medium. We got the brake bias, so the ballast of the car at 70 forward, and you can see the brake bias is right up front on a 60. I think that needs to come back a little bit, but not very much. We can see that the third spring, we didn't really talk about last week. In fact, we didn't talk about it last week. The third spring is on and showing as stiff, so the toggle between the two is either none or stiff, and it's got a gap of 90 mils. What I will do is come back and talk about that, because that is a fine adjustment that you may or may not want to work with. Last week we turned up the ARB, which is the side-to-side lateral tension bar between the left and right side of the car. We went up to I think we settled on a 70 Newton meters, but they're keeping it quite supple on this car. On the default setup in any case, and we've got a little bit of toe in, so toe in helps with the natural turn of the car. Now we can see here we're just running natural dampers, we're not changing anything there. We've got 220 springs on the front, 150 at the rear. Ride height is nice and low at the back to help with the overall speed. One thing that I did find interesting when I first loaded this up is the gear set. We're on the absolute shortest gear set. So yeah, I thought it might have gone a little bit longer. So preload 120, you if you remember, I think we brought that down to 90 last week, and we got a traction of 2. So plenty of traction control to play with there. So let's jump back in the car. Let's just find out what we get. So again, if you just want to see what the results of this run is, then just fast forward if you're watching the repeat on YouTube, or if you're watching it again on Twitch. Now what I found is that when I was testing this yesterday, as soon as I dropped the pressures, third gear on turn 2 worked for me perfectly fine, where it didn't like it at all with the normal pressures. Hold on a minute. I think it actually helps you actually take the tyres down. I don't think it did. And in fact, no, it didn't. Let's try that take again. We can cut that one out. So, right, left hand side comes all the way down. Right hand side comes all the way down apart from 1. And the right hand side, it needs to be a 38. There we go. So you can see we fail when we drop that, and so we need to, I think it was a 30.8. Yeah, so I think it's 2 clicks all around for everything, for each corner of the car. There we go. Back to where we started, ride height. Now we can go. So what last week did for us, dropping the temperatures, if you remember, when I was running medium round Interlagos, I was mentioning it took me 3, 4, maybe 5 laps to get down to get into the right sort of time scale. Now, when we dropped the pressures initially, we got there straight away. So the cooler the tyres, the more grip that we get from them. Now, of course, it's an outlap, but I can feel the added grip straight away. No, you can come down to third round here if you choose to. But I think with this gear set, I think it takes you right up to the edge of the gear. So, and if it doesn't take you up to the edge of the gear, then I think you're probably slowing down too much. That feels more stable under braking straight away. Flap through here, or nearly, turned in too early. Right, so do we get that boggy feeling when we go from 4th to 5th? I'm pretty sure we do. We're going uphill anyway, so it's not too bad there. It's just when we approach that final turn, it seems to be quite boggy. So there you can see, still didn't get it right, but you can see that using third on the second turn is gave us a bit of an advantage compared to previously. So you can hear the traction control trying to kick in. So these are all the little cues that we need to hopefully pick out and then think about how we can help them, but we've got to get down to the basics first. So nice and early into this corner, keep some of the throttle on. We can see how the time is dropping now that we've taken the tyres down in pressure. Got on the gas a bit early there, should have let it rotate a bit more. But yeah, so just turn the wheel just enough to get you around the turn. I've turned it a bit too much there, didn't turn it early enough. But we're losing the advantage now, so. So you can see how if you don't get the carousel quite right, you can see how you can lose the advantage all the way down the straight. Get in here nice and early, run the gas. See how we gain that time as opposed to on the last run where we lost the time coming through there if we didn't quite get it right. Right, so down, take 0.18 out. Yeah, that was better. But remember back to what we were doing last week. I know it was morning, or we thought it was going to be morning, but you're just going to be a bit more cautious. See, that's what happens if you get a braking wrong. You can hear the tyres starting to lock up, and then you're just losing grip. But more importantly, you're increasing tyre wear that you want later in the race. So you just need to be really cautious about your braking technique. Happen again. That second gear is too long. So Just walk it around a little bit longer that time before I really get on it. So you can see with the time now it's walking down, getting closer, but we're still not gaining enough though. Yeah, so in my experiments yesterday, half a second was about 4/10, half a second was about the gain by dropping the pressures to the floor. So yep, got to be careful on the end of that end of that curve there, because it's if you don't get off it early enough, then you see there we get a 1x. So first thing I'm going to do is shorten that second gear once we get out of the car, but if you look at the hot pressures on the car now, we now have a balance left to right. Better carousel. Still not quite right, but you can see how we're gaining. So minimal turn into the car there, just carry the corner on the way out, but again be careful of that outside curb. Getting a little bit more time. I think just braking that a little bit earlier for the final turn is helping, because that's what I've been doing in the last couple of laps, is just calming the car down a little bit more. Let's see what fourth gear feels like. Yeah. Right, okay, so there you go. That's what it's like if you lean on the curbs a little bit too much. Remember, we just don't have the downforce. And driving low downforce, if you've not experimented with it before or you come across it too often, it's all about keeping the car in a straight line and trying to do as much with the car in a straight line as we can. So I'm not going to do another run, but we can see that we've dropped the time down to we can see a 51.3 the last time around, so we've taken 3/10. If we kept going, we would have got that down to we would have gained like 0.4, 0.5 if we kept going. So I'm not going to do that because there's no point in me wasting time watching you guys watching me hot lap. So what was jumping out during what we was doing? So to me, second gear didn't feel right to me. It was just too buggy for where we would use it. So there's three places that we used it, which is turn, because I think they count the kink on the way down to the turn, but we have the big brake and we turn left and we go under the bridge. So I think we'll call it as 1, 2, 3, 4, turn 4. So we use it there. We also use it to head towards the second bridge. So what I'm going to do first of all is that I'm going to shorten that. So let's just see where we are. So because it is short between second and third, so we've literally got nothing at all. We've got 30 k's between it. We've got 40 k's between first and second. So let's just see what the increments are. So if we go to the next one, we've taken 5k out of it. If we go to the next one, what do we ultimately take out? Okay, so we had another 10. So let's just take the initial 5 out. And if you remember, when we approach the final turn, we do change up into fifth. Now, is that really the right thing to do? Can we put another click into fourth and maybe carry that gear into the final turn, because we're starting to brake that a little bit earlier to get the turn in. And what I want to do is bring up the traction control a little bit. So the one thing I've not mentioned is what is the actual temperature in the session. So 29.4 is the track temp with an air temp of 25.6. So even though we're on default late afternoon, we've still got some decent temperature, or lack of decent temperature in the ground. So we know what iRacing's variable or dynamic weather's like. It can spring up quite high, even though the default is like 30 degrees. It may go up to 34 maybe. So we'll go with 5 on that. Any other sorts of changes we can make? I don't want to visit the third spring just yet. I'm happy with the brake pressure. I don't want to change the ballast at this point. If anything, I want to bring the braking back 1 click, so we're moving the braking towards the back of the car by taking it to a 59.5. Now, like we talked about before, if we make the A or B stiffer, going down the hill to turn 4 for the braking that would potentially make that a little bit worse. So what we're going to do, I think we should first off bring down the springs. I'm going to try 190. I think in the past, I've had some good experience. We're going to keep the 30.8 at this point. The ride height. That's going to be 3 clicks, I think. 3 clicks. Yeah, that'll do. That's enough changes at this point. So let's go and have a look. And what we're going to do on the next change is, I think we shall work on the dampers, because the dampers have an effect on timing, but equally if you make them too fast, then what's going to happen is you can really start to go in the wrong direction with potentially the wrong springs, and then the A or B, possibly the third spring. But we're definitely going to talk about the third spring in this session. Well, the turning automatically feels a lot better with that, with the spring change. Now that could equally be down to the gear being a little bit shorter. So here we go, second gear again. That feels a lot better. Good. A bit loose there. Keep some gas on, keep some gas on. And then slowly bring it up. Can we get to where we need to be in fourth? Yes. That was the first lap though, and why did I change down to second? I have no idea. Force of habit. So that's the third thing to bear in mind, is that if you make a change, remember to change your brain, because we don't want 2 gears down, we only want 1 gear down if that still is good enough for the next lap. Yeah, third feels better through there. Still haven't got it right. Yeah, that still felt like I hadn't quite turned it in early enough. So yeah, slightly different approach now to that turn. So I don't know whether you can visually see how I'm driving, but don't know whether that comes across. So sometimes, like when you're in a passenger seat of a car and you got somebody driving different, you can often pick up and feel how it changes. But on the lower speed, that's certainly the turn-in with this, with a softer spring and the shorter gear, certainly feels better from my perspective. Don't forget, you've got the nice green bar across the top that we always chase. Having that taller gear certainly helps going through the slight uphill left turn, getting towards the end of the circuit. It certainly calms the car down a little bit more. You can see there how the back end was getting a bit lively. Now what was starting to happen there is that I could feel, believe it or not, that 0.5% of brake bias change to the rear of the car. So we just need to calm the car down a little bit more in the straight. A little bit tighter in there. We can hear the traction cut when the rear tyres aren't happy with what we're asking them to do. Hear it cut again. Now, if you noticed, when we had a look at the back of the car, we do have 10 Newton meters of ARB on the rear of the car. So what we do have is some flexibility to soften the rear of the car, but that's going to be at the penalty of some rotation. So yeah, still grab fifth though. That's my brain not hasn't updated yet. So do we want grip or do we want rotation? Can we get rotation in a different way? Because the back end of the car certainly feels like it's following the front of the car, which is always good. So I do have an idea of something I'd like to introduce to the, not in the stream, but in a separate video. I'll just keep it under my hat for a little bit, but what it'll help with Dave's demonstrated is the different driving styles and how you can achieve a lap time. Because you can imagine that if we decided to bolt on the medium downforce, we would certainly be wringing the neck out of the car in a lot more of an aggressive fashion. So again, we'll look at the hot pressures. Coming up nice and even, which is good. Even left to right, not right to front. We always want to have the lowest pressures in the car where possible. But by all means, experiment. If you want to bring the rears up and try and balance them to the front, see what your impression of it is. It may work for yourself. Never rule anything out until you try it when it comes to a set of work. Everybody likes something different in the cars. So we can hear that cutting. Funnily enough, when I had a race yesterday on Saturday in the round Interlagos, it's funny how you don't pick it up in practice, but when I was racing, you just waiting to hear something that's going wrong. And I only picked it up in the race, and I'm there thinking, is the car going to conk out? Have I put enough fuel in it? Because it's there cutting out. So, yeah, it was just baffling as to why I hadn't picked up on it during practice. But second gear and the front springs certainly feel better to me. Definitely feel better. So what we'll do, we'll just come in at the end of this lap. So you've got to feed the throttle on coming out of Canada. You can't just stamp on it. So we'll do a pit entry. Don't forget to practice this, guys, because some high speed stuff. Yeah, put that down in time. No flags. Excellent. Right. Okay, so dampers next. Because the gearing wise, there wasn't too much wrong with gearing wise apart from that second gear, and I'm happy that we've changed the second gear. Rear downforce, leave it on 1. By all means you can experiment, but you'd be surprised how much of a difference going from 1 to 2 can make. But by all means experiment if that's, you know, something that you have time to run through. I'm happy enough with the front end of the car at this point, and the rear. The other thing that I'd be tempted is I'll do that separately because we need to understand what that's doing. But before we do that, before we make a decision about whether we want more grip versus lateral side-to-side grip that will help the back end follow the front of the car, so we always want that to be an even feeling, not that the back end is going to come around on us. We want that to be more even. So what we're going to do is, I'm not going to go down to the 1-1-10-10 of last time. We're going to sort of we're definitely going to have the 10-10 on the rebound, so let's just bring up the 10s. So the 10s is bringing the car out of compression as quickly as possible. But what I'm going to have 3 and 2 on the front to start with. So as opposed to having a 4 and a 7, so we're having the 3 means that we're just moving the weight of the car just to the front just a little bit quicker. And on the low speed rebound, we're having the car come out of compression. So as we take the foot off the brake, the nose will come up out of the nose dipping quicker to get more weight to the back of the car. So we're going to. So this is the reason why I'm just waiting to make a decision on the rear ARB, is that we just need to make the changes at the rear. Again, I'm just going to go 3 and 2. We'll start with an even sort of. Oops. And then we'll go out and give that a go. Yeah, as you can see, we've got a positive towing at the back. What that means, so when we have a plus value at the back in iRacing, it means that it's going to help stabilize the back of the car. So what that means is that when you turn in, it'll feel a little bit more safe at the back versus if it was on 0. There is one of the positives, is that the more plus value that I have on the back of the car can help for traction as you're pulling away. But I think you'd really have to go to like a +2 value for that to help, I would think. So really, what I use the towing at the rear for is I generally tend to have it on 0, but I'm going to leave it on +1 at the minute. So we'll get to a particular point in the tune and then we'll take it out and just see if we can feel the difference. So of course when we made the damper change, we've changed the high speed as well. So the high speed is about strikes, not about the damping performance when we're going faster in a straight line. So what we're hoping for here is a more responsive car, because going through the low speeds, as good as the suspension and the gear change was, we still wasn't getting that dynamic change. But equally we need to be measured with those dynamic changes because we don't have the downforce to play with, so we've got to make sure that what we're doing is controlled. It may feel okay now, but don't forget we're not going to be the only people on the circuit. We're going to have other HPDs trying to take our position. We're going to have LMP1s doing whatever the hell they want to do, and they really need to be cautious going through the kink. Then we also have to make our way through the GTE field, which should be better because we're going to be nice and high. We're going to be nice and high on the old top end, so we should be able to punch out of a lot of the corners and get past them hopefully, and not cause too much issue. And if anybody's running medium, then they're going to have a harder time of that, and that's where we can get that separation. There you go, look at the time coming out of there now. So yeah, so when it comes to, you know, obviously the race has phases, so the first part of the race is just trying to establish some kind of rhythm, and then when we come into the traffic, we can hopefully get some benefits out of safely getting past some of the GT guys, because they're always the first guys. Completely missed the apex there, alright. Relative instantly reflects that. So if you, so let's just imagine that we've got a medium downforce behind us. Depending on where we're going to hit the GTEs, which is an important factor, we should be able to fly past them where they may get hung up and not be able to get past them. Let's say, so if we're coming down here, you know, we can nail them going into Canada corner, and they may get stuck behind them, so we can then hopefully get a second or two, and then they've lost the draft going down the main straight, and then all they're going to get from there onwards is more pain. And if they're being chased by another low downforce car, then they're open for having to defend themselves, so it's all about trying to give you the best advantage, but equally we need to get this car stable so that you can control it when you're around others. But you can see that we're gaining going over the start finish line there, which is a good sign. Completely botched out. Can we get in there? Yeah. Need to pay that corner a bit more attention. I normally V it a little bit more than that, really go out, take out to an apex. So I might just try that a bit more on the next lap. So what we don't want to be doing in low downforce is trying to grab a gear and get it to help us rotate, unless you're really struggling for grip. As he completely blows that corner. But you can see the relative here, you know, with the changes that we've made, you can see that we're getting the higher top end now. Nearly. So if you've been watching where I've been braking, approaching this left-hander, there's sort of like a little bit of a flat pot as just before the final drop. Just here. trying to talk and hit it at the same time is not a good idea. So it still doesn't really want to get in there for me well enough. And of course that can be down to the towing at the back of the car. It offers, like I mentioned, stability, but it can be a subtle enough change that it can wake the car up a little bit more in the rotation. So yeah, so at this point I still feel like I need some, for me, I need some more rotation. It doesn't feel like the dampers are giving me any adverse effect. In fact, you can see the top end is certainly coming up. You can see there I'm starting to struggle now for a bit of rotation. So we've got to make a decision about, is it going to be the back or is it going to be the front that's going to give it to us? So we'll just do one more lap. I'm going to shut up and just see if we can get a bit of time. So we've got like 4.5 tenths between our relative and the fastest speed. Now that was me on the brakes causing that over rotation. One turn in the steering wheel, don't forget. Plenty more braking in that corner is available, but I don't want to go taking too much out. Fourth gear still doesn't feel like it's still quite long enough. But yet again, tyres are still, or hot pressures are still showing nice and balanced fronts, sorry, left to right, so. And we're getting a nice consistent lap time as well, which is an important part. So I would say setup can give you some time, but it's about consistent time. That's what we're trying to get, because we want to maintain a speed. Often you can think about racing can be about who slows down the least versus who can go the fastest. So that's one way to have a look at it, I suppose. So so a little bit more rotation would be nice. So tempted to go with the front AOB first because it is really low, really low. Because I'm liking what the rear ARB is giving me through the carousel. So the long right-hander, as we go underneath the sausage bridge, I think this adverts for sausages on there. I just spotted that the cambers are misaligned. Let's correct that. There we go. So we notice that we've got the back end is coming round nicely for me. We do have quite a bit of caster on. I'm tempted to bring that down as well. Let me just bring this down a little bit. So don't forget, we want to get the ARB preloads as low to 0 as possible. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down the caster to 3.8. So that means it's going to give us, so we're not going to roll over quite as much, where it's going to help us in the sort of the more low to mid speed corners. So if you're having understeer high speed, you want to raise the caster. So the caster is a dynamic camber, so it essentially leans over. The more caster, the more that if you think about like a motorcycle, the front fork goes away from you at an angle, and when you turn, you can see how the tire is sort of falling over to the side. So the more caster you have, the more that it falls to the side and gives you a dynamic dynamic camber. So the less that you have, the shorter the angle, or the tire is closer to you, so it more twists like I say a trolley wheel would do, so it's more direct. So but what we are going to do is I'm going to take up the front ARB to 40. I'm not going to go crazy because like I mentioned, that can cause problems with braking on the front. Just correct that front ARB. We'll also bring that back to 1 on the towing, because you can see things will change as you make changes to the setup. Just making sure everything's correct. There we go, we've got to change there. Let's try and... The rear preload can be a real pain in the ass to get back to 0 sometimes. Hello, 8 fans. Sorry I didn't reply. I was busy trying to talk and drive at the same time. It's a bit of a problem. It is for me anyway. Right. So, do we get better feel out of what we're doing? We can get an initial reaction on the outlaps, but don't forget, we've got to get the tyres up to some form of pressure. But everything that we do here, we've got to validate with a long run. So the caster change helps here, the previous corner helps there, and it's going to help this right-hander down the hill. So far, it feels like it's helped all 3 of them. Now, where it can be a problem is these kind of corners, but it doesn't feel like it was a problem at that point. So, in fact, it felt like it was a little bit better for what we needed, but don't do that. So far we've not had any adverse effect by increasing the front ARB. Even though it didn't look like it, that did feel a lot better. It's just sometimes you need to go around these corners and understand what the car's giving you, and then next time you can hopefully get it right. But you can see on entry there, you can see that the green, the delta, was going more in our favour. So we're sort of certainly helping. Car certainly feels like it's getting quicker, but at the same time, it's not trying to kill me, which is ideal. Now I did put a little bit of brake on through the carousel that time, but it doesn't feel right when I put some brake on to help it rotate. But sometimes in the race you'll probably need to do that, because if you're following anybody or if you come across some traffic, then what you're going to find is what you'll find is that you get a little bit of aero wash, and then the front end just won't do what you thought it was going to do. Okay, 51.3, so we made some gains. I'd say we're probably on the edge of where that front AOB might be a problem with braking. Front braking, that is. Because if you listen, if you've not already heard it, but if you listen next time we go through there, I can hear it's just starting to bite a little bit too much, in the way of the tyres almost sounding like they're just about on the edge of locking out. Okay, no braking that time. Feels much better. But I think I want to take that plus camber off, plus towing off the back of the car. Feels a cop out where he drops a second going around there. Again, we've just hit another 51.3 lap. So braking in this car isn't necessarily all about last minute stamp on the brake, get the car turned in. It just won't help you to do that. So in some ways you want to apply almost like an LMP1 sort of braking, especially in the Audi where all you've got is regen on the brakes. You maybe just want to have a longer, more progressive brake phase. The carousel feels a lot easier. Doesn't feel like before it felt like if I put my foot on the gas it wasn't going to get around. Now it absolutely feels like it's going to carry me around. And what I mean by that is the on-throttle drive out of the car. So what I'm talking about by that is we call it if you get an extreme version of it, it's called on-throttle oversteer. But what we're really looking for is not oversteer, but what's just underneath the understeer element of when you put your foot on the throttle. We want it to drive us out in a positive way. Okay, a little bit slower that lap. So what we'll do, instead of watching me hot lap again, I want to take that +1 out the rear of the car. And then I think we might need to have a chat about what the what about the third spring does. So let's take this out. Right. I'm happy with all the changes so far. What I'm going to save as. So 2018, season 4, week 2, sorry. Yep, and Road America. Right, one thing to do, I always have a quali and a race set ready to go instead of just doing what some do where they just drop the fuel out, and before they actually go out I like to do a little bit of practice. So I'm quite happy. I don't want to take the front ALB any higher at this point. I want to try and keep it. We can always revisit that again, but it felt like it was just getting to that edge of where it was just starting to have an effect. So third spring. So we've been talking about the front and the rear ALB, where that's a lateral stiffening. So that can give, if you have it really soft, you can feel it sort of wobble, shall we say, like and when you go stiffer, that gives it a more dynamic feel. And in most cars, you probably want it to be as stiff as possible without it having an adverse effect. And for this car, at this point, I would say the adverse effects is the braking efficiency that we're going to get going down the hill, because all the weight goes on the nose of the car. So what a third spring does, it's instead of it being a lateral side to side, it is a rear to front. If you've ever seen a Formula One car with the with some part of the nose exposed, and then you see a spring that is side to sort of sits in there, you'll see that there is the side to side element, but there's one that goes front to rear, and what we're doing is that we can have an effect on how much the nose drops, and equally how much the back of the car is allowed to move. So currently we've got 91 millimeters of travel before we hit the third spring. It goes out to about 150 to 160 mil of a gap, and all the way down to no gap at all. Now this is something that you would have a play and tune. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to take a bit of a swing at this, and I'm going to drop it down to 50. So we'll definitely feel a difference here. So we started at 91. We'll just take it down to 50, and then we'll just see what we get, see what kind of a change it does for us. Now we just need to just check and make sure that doesn't change anything else, which to me it looks like it hasn't. So we've made two changes. So we've got rid of the towing at the back, and we've reduced the third spring. So we're going to feel the effect of the third spring quicker. So don't forget, that's going to be braking and throttling, as well as more of a rigid feel in the car overall. Now some people who do drive low downforce would rather have that turned off, and you have more of a more movement in the body of the car. But that again is a personal choice. But depends whether you want a dynamic car or not, or you want it to be a little bit more of a roly-poly, shall we say. Okay, I could definitely feel something there. Definitely could feel something there. Don't forget we've affected the back of the car as well by removing that +1. Okay. Now that was the first time that the last corner felt like it should feel. So on throttle coming out of there felt much better, and the relative is giving us a positive indication of that. To lackadaisical there. Ideally, you want to get to a point with a setup where the car helps you at points, where it looks after you, where it's not going to do anything stupid. Now I had to press the brake going through there, then that's where we lost the time. I just stayed on the throttle too long. That's what I noticed a lot of people do. They generally tend to hang on to a throttle too long, instead of letting the car, giving the car enough time to slow down. We're all guilty of it at some point, I would think. Turned in too early. Got on the gas too early that time. Okay, down to a 51.4 again. Well, certainly turn 1 feels a lot safer going full throttle coming out of it, where you saw earlier that it just wanted to spin up and do bad things to you. Yeah, didn't turn in early enough for that turn. So what we'll also do, we'll have a look and see if we have gained any more top speed, because we was 288.1. So it'll be interesting to see if we've gained any top end with all the changes that we've made. It won't be much, but it'll be interesting to see. Turned in too early. But what I've noticed when we've been driving around currently is that I'm not feeling the front ARB have an effect on the braking going down to turn 4 now. Whether I don't need to press on the brake pedal quite so much because of the tightness in the way that the car is now handling. Oh, that's just stupid. That's talking while going through a corner. It's not a good idea. Okay, I purposely broke a little bit later than trying to induce something. Still not happy with that that left turn there. That's just can't seem to quite get it in. But there is one other thing that we've not touched yet, which is the gearbox. Well, the diff I should say. We've certainly changed 2 gears. I can see the car certainly still wants to rotate for us. Now, like we talked about before, the preload on this is 125. Last week we went on 90. I think we'll probably go to that first, I think. But I certainly feel going into Canada Corner and then going down towards turn 4 Certainly feels like I've got more confidence in the brakes as well. Right, so I'm going to pull over and we'll go and have a look at the preload. So I'm happy with that change, so we're going to make a save on that. Right, now, talked about it last week. When we're looking at diff, if we reduce the 125 preload, that means the pressure on the left to right wheel is going to reduce, which means that it could have an ill effect on us pushing out of quite a few of the corners. So instead of the back end pushing us one, it may be that one side gets more power than the other, then we start to have weird things going on. Now, like a counter side to that is when we're braking, we're not getting the sort of the gearbox help, and also when we want to turn into a corner, we're going to get a little bit more help because the gearbox is going to be a little bit more free. So what I'll do at this point is bring that down to 90. I'm going to leave the D-cell. So I'll just repeat again what the D-cell and an X-cell is, and the clutch plate. So the clutch plate, it's almost like a multiplier of how much force goes to the rear wheels. And we've got I think 8 is the biggest, or maybe, yeah, I think 8 is the biggest. We've got a D-cell that goes from 1 to 10. That's when you're off throttle. So the lower the number, the less the gearbox, or the diff I should say, will come to your aid. So the higher the number, the better, if you want that to give a little bit more reassurance when you make a turn. So if we're happy with the on throttle response, but if it starts to go where it feels a little bit funky when we turn in, it feels unsafe, we can just pop up the D-cell. XL, most people probably leave that on 1 unless you do something really weird like drop down the clutch plates to a 1. You may want to increase that up to send more force to the back of the car. But we're still getting that little bit of a judder coming out of some of the turns as well. So we've still got, ideally, we could do with trying to sort that judder out, because essentially we're losing traction when that happens. But I don't want to give up the rear ARB at this point. Yeah, so when we make a turn in a corner, it should feel like a bit more free in its action of doing that. So what I'm going to do now, because I'm feeling a bit more confident in the braking zone we've just been through, is I'm going to start bringing it forward a little bit. Now, first impressions going around that left-hander is that the car felt a little bit floaty, as if I didn't have complete control of it. So we'll see what happens next time. So, do we still have the drive that we expect from the back of the car as well? These are the things that we've made an adjustment to, that we just need to make sure it still works in the way that we want. Interesting, it wanted to turn by itself then. Right. Yeah. Don't think I hit the brake hard enough initially on that time. That felt better than the last time. The tyres having a bit more temperature in them. Okay. That still wanted to drive me out the turn, so that's alright. We didn't check to see what top speed had been, so. Heard a little bit of inside locking there on the front. I think we might need one click more of decel diff on that, I think. Just feels like it just needs a little bit more reassurance, but we'll see. So straight back down on time again, so it's what we want it to be, nice and consistent. Move back to the old braking spot there for that lap. Turned in too late. Too much of an angle on that, you soon find out that he doesn't like it. You can hear the tyres. I must admit I'm getting a bit more aggressive on the brakes now, so that's because of a confidence. So equally I'm now starting to hit the turning point that I want on the final turn, which is essentially as soon as you get to that black sort of rumble strip curb on the left hand side. As soon as you get there, sort of time your turn. That was just lame. But what I do feel coming down here, if I hit the same brake point, what I'm feeling is a lot more confidence in the car that I can get stopped. So if somebody was coming up the side of me, you know, I feel like I have a lot more control. I think here is just being a bit more cautious, getting scrubbing the speed off before we turn in for that left hand. But I still think we just maybe need one more click on the decel diff. Really early on the throttle then, and it still grabbed from the back of the car and pushed me out, so that's good. Okay, we'll pit on this lap. So I brought my braking point further back, roughly to where we started, and that feels controlled again. It's round about here where it feels a little bit. So black on the outside, turn in. Didn't get it because I'm talking again. Practice your pit start, your pit entries. Ooh, do we get? I think we'd have had one then. I think. It really needs to have like a luminescent line across the floor there. Right. Well, let me have a look at top speed. Right. Are we gaining anything down the straight? No. Still, JLT still saying 288.1. So. But we're certainly gaining punch out of the corners. So when we was watching the relative and we're gaining time down the back straight, that'll be because we've punched out. So I don't think we're getting any higher up the rev range. So let's put that one click of decel on. So that helps. So that gives us a little bit more understeer, but it's only a little bit. We've got 10 steps of understeer. I don't want to put any more Excel, I don't want to send any more power to the back of the car, or force to the back of the car, and I'm happy with the clutch plate on 3. If I go to 4, then that means we're going to have an understeer coming in, because we're going to be, so the more the number, the more force that we're putting through the diff. So that means that we're going to amplify the understeer and the oversteer, so we don't want to do that. We could play a little bit more traction control. I'm pretty much happy with the gears as they are at this point. Ideally, you want to test it in a session and make sure you get enough top end. So when you're flying up flying on the long straights, that you've got enough to get past somebody. I'm happy that we're getting stopped enough. I suppose we only really have at this point, I would say, an issue is the jittering from the traction control kicking in. You see, we're still in that area of experiment, so we've not touched ballast. You don't have to necessarily touch it, it may be perfectly correct. So the ballast is the weight in the car where it's going to be, so we're 70 millimeters forward of neutral, so we can move that further forward or we can move it further back. I think I would be tempted to move it back to say 50 mil. So this could be the compensation in some ways for reducing this. So I'm going to take the rear ARB off. The most sensitive part to ARB in this car is the rear of the car. As soon as you start to apply it, you can feel its benefit, but equally you can feel the reduction in grip depending on what time of day and what kind of a track it is. So we'll see, is it a positive or a negative to have that off the car? So what we're listening for is the traction control kicking in, where we can hear, it's almost like the engine cuts. We want to get rid of that. That's too... no, can get away with it. So that's too much of an angle there. So you just need to be cautious of not getting too aggressive through there when you might have somebody giving you some trouble, or being overtaken, or you overtaking somebody else. Just make sure you go through there plenty of times and try some different angles. Back off the throttle by 10% if we need to do that as well. So have we lost through there? I would say no. In fact, it felt a little bit more like we gained grip, certainly through there. Okay, well, that certainly feels like taking it off has certainly helped. It certainly feels like it wants to bite and punch out of a corner a bit better for me now. So does that stay with us? Just dragging the brakes into someone a little bit too long. Feel a tail wanting to come around a little bit. Starting to get the effect coming back again there. Certainly feels like it's biting better there, which is only good. Yeah, that feels better going through there. Yep. That is staying. That is a definite change. Definite change. I always have trouble with this command. I think because it's such a long straight that we have here, coming out of turn 2, you just know that you need to get the best out of it. And I think that can often play on your mind. Don't do what I'm doing at this point. Don't just do a handful of laps and go back in again. You need to drain the tank, make sure the car sticks, and we want to do this in default or even slightly higher temperatures than default, because we know we're going to get them, and all that happens is that the car gets worse if the track temperature gets higher. Damn it. Right, so I'm going to put some more ballast at the rear of the car. I'd like to put more AOB on the front to make the nose more reactive, but I don't want to lose the braking effect on the front. So I'm pretty happy with the front of the car, being honest. You could experiment a little bit more, but obviously we're at an hour and a half now, an hour and 40 minutes, so I'm going to take 40 out of it. That's quite a sweep of a balance change in low downforce. So I think going anything minus in low downforce, you're going to be pretty ballsy to have that for a race. Unless you make the car so tight that you need the ballast to get you around a corner. Now, like we mentioned last week, the more the ballast goes towards the rear of the car, the added benefit, as well as it helping you with the back end wanting to come round, is that it puts more weight over the back of the tyres, or over the tyres. Do we get more of a... Interesting. Felt pretty nice. That's the corner where you know you've got too much. And the last corner is the corner that you know that you don't have enough. Right. That certainly felt very useful to me coming through there then. The right speed, the car helped me turn, but would it be too much for some? That's the question. We're going to get a good spring out of that corner. Go on the gas too late there. That certainly feels another corner that likes the ballast change. Can we still go through here flat? Sort of lift through it a little bit. Yeah, that feels so much better when you get more of a pendulum effect on the back of the car. .51.2. I know they got down to a 51 flat yesterday. So now I'm starting to get through there a bit better, or quite a bit better actually. We can see that we can carry the speed down the course now. Come on. Right, here we go. This should do it. Right, can we hold on to it, or do we bottle it at the end of the lap? That's the question. that was close. Oh, we're gonna hold it. How much we're gonna lose to the line? I think we're good. Right, there we go. Just nearly a 59, nearly a 50 flat. Right. Okay. So yeah. So that's certainly helping. I think to combat just that little bit of a pendulum. I think I'm starting to like that, but it's just there's only really one place where it becomes a problem, which is the last but one turn. So what I'm going to do is save that. I would say have a look at the ballast first, or what you could do, maybe put a little bit of decel on there. One more click of decel, just see if that helps out. But that is where we're going to leave it. Let's just have a quick check, see if we're getting any more top speed. No, we didn't. So, oh well, never mind. So, yeah. So don't forget the speed differences. If you're thinking one way or the other, the speed difference between let's get rid of that white background is a good margin. It's 14k. So that's going to be quite an effect going down the straight. So yeah. So don't forget, if you're going to go with medium, you better wring the neck out of it on the corners, and really utilize it, because the low downforce guys are just going to come flying past you. Okay, guys. I wasn't expecting it to be this long again, but it turns out that, well, this is our first low downforce circuit, so yeah, maybe the next time we go low, which should be next week as well, because we are at Spa. So I didn't see the time of day. That might be medium if it's afternoon though. But we'll do some experiments and find out. Okay, guys. I'll see you soon, and maybe even see you on track. Take care. Bye bye.